Hello and welcome to Thoughts on the Book of Mormon with Ganel-Lyn. I am Ganel-Lyn, and I love the chapters we are going to talk about today. We are in Mosiah 21 through 24, and there are two amazing escape stories that I can't wait to dive into with you. So the first one is about Limhi's people. And they are being bullied by the Lamanites, and many of them are feeling like grief. They're feeling oppressed. They're feeling like they're overly taxed, that they're slaves, that their quality of life is horrible. And they go against the Lamanites in a war. 3 times they're driven back, and each time they're battling, they have to fight this like emotion. Have you ever had that where you keep trying to resolve something and you're just in total emotion and you just keep going at it, and as they fight, that natural man part of them is kind of what's driving the ship and leading the story. And then we see after the 3rd attempt that they are humbled and they cry unto the Lord all day long, and the Lord does free them. He eases their burdens and softens the hearts of the Lamanites, and he doesn't always remove our problems. And we're going to see this story repeat itself in the next couple of chapters. So I love that in compiling this, Mormon and Moroni felt like it was important to have these stories together. I love it. They're cautious and watchful, and they're aware of the wicked priests that are out there still, and they start gathering their supplies and they stay together, and it sets the stage for when Ammon and his brothers come. So this explains why the minute Ammon and his brothers come, there's this whole reaction about it, right? They're just really nervous and upset, and they mistake them for wicked King Noah's priests because there had already been drama with those priests. And instead they were these missionaries from Zarahemla, and they're so joyful. And Limhi has set out a scouting party many times looking for Zarahemla, and he all of a sudden is like, oh my gosh, guess what we found? The last time we tried to find you guys in Zarahemla, we found the last records of the Jaredites. So Ammon learns about Abinadi and the story of Alma and all of that happening, and he is so sad because these are likely people he loves and he knows, missionaries and prophets that he was aware of. And Limhi's people want to get baptized. They have had this conversion experience because oftentimes our opposition brings us to a place of humility and we want to make a change. And that's what's happening to Limhi's people. But Ammon doesn't feel worthy, and they say you need to wait. And they don't get baptized, but they do make a covenant. And the covenant is clear that they will covenant their hearts to God and he will protect them, and the escape is coming. Next chapter, Mosiah 22, is Gideon. He comes with this great plan. He's like, by the way, the Lamanites are a bunch of drinkers. And so his mastermind escape plan is to give this extra strong wine to the Lamanites, and that will be their escape plan out. And they sneak out at night after they have been drinking, and the Lamanites are drunk, and the guards are asleep, and King Limhi's people escape, and they join Mosiah and his people in Zarahemla, and they are brought to this place that they've been longing to go, and they bring the Jaredite record with them, and the Lamanites discover that they have snuck out at night, and they search, and it says in the scriptures that for 2 days they couldn't find their tracks. And I think that is another example of where when we keep our covenants keep us. God doesn't necessarily remove the burden, but he strengthens us. He blocks the way for our enemies. The Lamanites couldn't find their tracks. He leads us to a greater promised land. Sometimes we don't see it as a promised land until we've experienced some heartache. And the blessings are sometimes seen in the long view. And that's why reading scripture is so great, because you see this story versus the 100 years you're living through it, which is how we feel in our own lives. Sometimes when we're in the middle of it, we have a very different perspective than when we look back and we talk about that experience, that job loss, that cancer diagnosis, that divorce, that struggle with addiction, whatever that is. Now, this story's happened. They're back with Mosiah and his people. The next 2 chapters, Mosiah 23 and 24, are the story of Alma. Remember Alma? He's the lone convert of Abinadi, and he has built this beautiful people, this community, and they start to prosper. Being spiritually focused and righteous means you will see warnings, you will be strengthened, and you will be protected. It doesn't mean if you're spiritually keeping your covenants, paying your tithing, going to church, going to the temple, reading your scriptures, saying your prayers, that every bad thing is going to escape you. Because we see here that as they travel 8 days into the wilderness, this pattern of 8 is so important. I love patterns. 8 is my lucky number. I think of 8 years in the wilderness, that Lehi's family, about that, they're out before they travel to the promised land. So they're 8 days into the wilderness, which is enough time to not go back. You know, sometimes when we have a wilderness experience, it is a wilderness experience because we can't get out of it. We can't just go back to our comfort zone. And sometimes that wilderness experience is a job loss or some of the other things I've already named. And we all are sometimes called into the wilderness to leave our comfort zone so we come to know God better. The people wanted a king because Alma has led them so beautifully. They're like used to wicked King Noah. And Alma says, no, there's a problem with monarchies. The people want this because they're flourishing and they want to give him all of this credit and power. But he says that if you could control and guarantee that all the kings you call are righteous, great, but you can't guarantee that. And so we're not going to give power to one person. He admits that he had petitioned the Lord in his tribulation to be an instrument. So we don't know the time frame from when he hears Abinadi, he becomes reconverted, he goes out on his own, and then he prays to help this people change. But we know that he petitioned the Lord. And he's glorying in God. He's not saying, I'm the greatest leader, I'm the greatest missionary, I'm the greatest Sunday school teacher, I'm the greatest whatever. He's saying, I glory in God, that God has brought this mighty change upon the people. Remember, Alma is talking to basically ex-slaves, and he's trying to get them to use their agency, to drive their own ship. He's saying, love one another, guard against contention. But he's the high priest. We don't know if that's like the stake president, the bishop, but he's the one who's giving authority and setting apart the other leaders below him. But he is trying to get these people to engage in agency and not be led and not be dictated to. And I think that's really an important thing. I think it's a Brigham Young quote that says what is the scariest, and I'm paraphrasing, is when the saints just believe the leaders. They don't try to petition the Lord for their own understanding and knowledge, their own testimony and conversion on principles. So as we go into verse 22, he says, nevertheless, put your trust into God, because what is going to start to happen here is another story of deliverance. And he says that God loves his people enough to chasten them. And here is the chastening that happens. The people were so afraid because the Lamanites are chasing them. And as they're running, they realize the Lamanites are looking out for the people of Limhi, and they are coming after the people of Alma. Isn't that crazy? And they are so afraid. And Alma counsels his people to surrender, basically. And it's not great. The army's chasing them, trying to find the people of Limhi, and the wicked priests, and so the army is chasing two different groups here. Alma and the army is chasing after the people of Limhi, and they encounter, while they're chasing them, Amulon. Okay? Amulon is one of the wicked priests. And they have, remember, the Lamanite daughters. They ask their wives, because now they've taken these women as their wives, to go tell the Lamanites to be nice to them. And the Lamanites, they gain favor, and they give power to Amulon. Amulon, after Alma surrenders, becomes the leader over Alma's people. I hope that makes sense. I know it's confusing, all these stories, cool stories, but they're happening at the same time. Amulon becomes a horrible leader over, he remembers Alma. He remembers that he was in the courts when Abinadi was there. And he makes a law that they cannot pray or they will be killed. And Alma says, be of good cheer, that in your hearts you can pray, and God promises them that they will be delivered. There's a deep sleep that comes upon the Lamanites eventually, and they escape, and they return to Zarahemla for this great reunion. I hope this has helped you with these amazing stories of deliverance, because God is our power.